joining us on this very special edition of the Cannibal HorrorCast. This is a podcast where we talk about horror movies, if you couldn't tell by the name of the show. We haven't done it since how many months ago was it? 6?
This is as long as a dog's leg.
I'm your host, Johnny Destructo. With me this week is Stephen Andrade.
Hey.
And ML Miller.
Howdy.
Hi. Mark is going to be changing. He's going to be a man of many hats tonight.
Yes.
Why?
That's for the mood that I'm in right now.
Okay.
I'm feeling like a cowboy.
We are here to talk about a movie that just dropped this year called Color Out of Space, starring Nic Cage and Joey Richardson, directed by Richard Stanley. But first, we have correspondence. So this one's called So I Listened to Cannibal HorrorCast. That's the name of the email. Yeah. Even though I haven't seen Hereditary, I did see Midsummer, Crawl, The Curse of La Llorona, Pet Sematary, and Us. I'll agree the end of Pet Sematary is the best thing about it, even though I haven't seen the original. I wish I could go back and wipe my brain of Midsummer. Eesh. I like Us, but I recognize it had some flaws. The Curse of La Llorona was so convoluted. Supernatural handled that myth better, though Raymond Cruz had a hilarious line reading at the end of the movie. I can't remember what it was, though, because apparently I have watched that one from my brain. Chris St. Saucy, good night.
I have not seen La Llorona.
Me neither. But I believe at the last Cannibal HorrorCast we talked about Hereditary.
We did.
So he's responding to that.
In a roundabout way. I didn't see it.
Sort of, yeah.
But here's all the other stuff I did see.
I love, to this day, Hereditary. I maintain that it's one of my probably top 10 horror films of all time. But Midsummer, I wasn't as big a fan of. And I haven't seen Crawl, but everyone says it's so good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's like a popcorn monster movie. Like a Deep Blue Sea sort of thing. With it's fun. It's a fun horror movie. They play around with a couple conventions that I really liked. If I bring it up, it kind of spoils a bit of it, so I don't want to do that. But after you see it, maybe I'll talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, I've been curious to see it, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Anyway, La Llorona I didn't see. I wanted to. It's on HBO now, so I'll probably end up seeing it. I did see Annabelle, which had a La Llorona crossover in it, apparently.
Oh.
But I didn't know at the time until I looked back on it. But at the beginning, Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson, they see a wreck on the side of the road, and then they look, and then all of a sudden this ghost appears in the back of their car, and that's the La Llorona lady, apparently.
Oh, okay.
So it's a little cameo in Annabelle. So they were just connecting it all, basically, trying to make the Avengers of horror.
Shared universe of Blumhouse horror movies.
Of shitty movies. And Annabelle, what is it? In the House? What's it called?
Annabelle in the House. No idea.
Annabelle Electric Boogaloo. It's Annabelle 3, but it's Comes Home. Comes Home. But that one is not. I didn't like that at all. The second one I liked a lot, though.
I haven't seen a single Annabelle.
Me neither.
Well, the story in Insidious was really good.
Insidious, is that the one with Darth Maul?
Yeah, that's the one that every time we brought it up on previous podcasts, I believe your exact words were "fuck that movie."
Oh, that's a good point. Fuck that movie. I hate it. We have another email.
Oh,
hey.
Good. Just in time.
This one's from
my hat.
This one's from Pink Apocalypse.
Ah.
I'm about ready to suspend your horror fan card, JD.
Yeah.
Firstly, you can go wash your mouth out with soap for essentially shit-talking Toby Hooper, saying that Chainsaw is the only good thing he's ever done. Yes, his career took a sharp nosedive into low-budget fare and TV episodes, but he gave us Invaders from Mars and Life Force. Life Force, JD. The arguably quintessential batshit crazy love letter to Hammer films with a wonderful stew of multiple genres working together at once.
I think we read this before because we
Damn it!
We did. We talked about Invaders from Mars.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, because we talked about how it's all about your parents you walking in on your parents' stack.
I do remember that. You're right. I can never tell when people send emails. I can never tell if I read it on the show or if I just read it.
It's okay. We can read it again.
Secondly, the original Pet Sematary is one of my all-time favorite bleak horror movies. The reoccurring theme in reviews for the new one is that it's a complete retread that isn't really necessary since the old one exists. I'm very open-minded with remakes and will go see it. You should go see the old, because I've never seen the original Pet Sematary.
Yeah, you should see it just for comparison's sake.
I hear it's bonkers. Like, not a lot of people. I don't hear very good things about it.
No, I mean, I think if they would have taken the original and this one and they put it together, they cut certain scenes together, it'd almost be the perfect adaptation.
Oh wow!
The new one, especially the way the car scene, the car wreck, the truck scene, when that was the way that was filmed, it was just compared to the original, it just doesn't compare at all. I think the way it was set up and the emotion that actually happens in that original scene is just, I don't think you can beat that. And that's why I think they didn't try to beat it. They just tried to film it sort of differently. And it, I don't think it was as successful as the original.
Yeah. I thought the new one was very, what's the word? I thought it was great. I like the new one a lot. It was kind of hard to watch. It was uncomfortable. And I got to say, though, that main character, that actor always looks evil.
Yeah. He just seems like a blank slate to me. He's not my favorite actor. He was in one of the Apes movies too, right?
Was he?
I think he was in like the second one. And he's just like a dude, he's not like, we need a guy to play a male role in a movie, and he's kind of that way, where he just kind of blends into the background of the movie.
Yeah. Which is exactly what you want as a leading man.
Yeah. But the original, the actor there wasn't that great either. But I like the original Zelda a lot better than this new Zelda, though.
Okay.
Steven,
I'll have to give it a rewatch.
I haven't seen the remake yet. It's one that I've been curious about, but I heard some pretty lousy reviews, so I've kind of not wanted to, if I have time to watch a movie these days, I want to try to watch something that I think I'm going to enjoy, or at least sound interesting. I like the original. Most of it. There's some things that it's funny. You look at the movies that are made back in the 90s, the early and mid 90s, and they have all a very almost like a made for TV feel to them. In terms of just the cinematography, it's very kind of flat. So watching it now, the original one, it's it looks a little cheap, but I do like a lot of the performances in there. I like the guy who played Herman Munster as the old neighbor. I thought he was really good in that movie. And then the little kid, of course, as the evil little kid. Yeah. Evil little kid is one of my favorite subgenres of horror movies. So any movie with evil little kids, I'm down for that.
I like after they shoot him in the neck with the he shoots him in the neck with the drum, and the kid walks off like he's drunk, and then he just falls over against
Yeah. And I always wonder, is that the kid doing that, or is that one of the little people that they hired for the stunts to do that?
Oh, but that looked real. I mean, it really looked like that kid. They gave that kid a couple shots, and it was just wandering away. Hobbled, and he just went boom, just fell over.
It is funny watching that movie too. You can see when he's fighting with the evil demon little kid. You can clearly see the shots when it's a dummy that he's tossing around.
Yeah.
But no, I'll have to see the remake at some point. But
the look in that movie, though, they got a skinny man to play that, not a woman, and it's just so freaky. I think he was a contortionist or something.
Wow.
The makeup was really good too.
Oh yeah, you could see every bone down his spine and just the whole thing. And there's this shot where she's hiding in the corner, and then she just kind of scuttles right towards the camera like this, and it scares the shit out of me every time I see it. So yeah, it's pretty awesome.
You scared Steven away. He's like, I'm too scared now. I'm spooked. Yeah.
So yeah, but I agree. The ending of Pet Sematary was awesome. Of the new one with the cat, I thought that was just a really well done, creepy ending. That I wish the rest of the movie was like that. JD, did you know ending? I thought that was an excellent ending.
Oh, the ending was great.
Yeah,
very dark. I like a good dark ending for sure. All right. Let's talk about Color Out of Space. You guys want to do that?
Yeah, definitely.
Sure.
All right. Let's see. So I didn't know anything about The Color Out of Space. I do now, and I will tell you some stuff. It's directed by Richard Stanley. It's written by Scarlett O'Maris, based on an H.P. Lovecraft short story starring Nic Cage, Joey Richardson, who I had to look up. She's from Nip Tuck.
I think it's Jolie Richardson?
Jolie Richardson, yeah. My computer auto-corrected it.
Stupid computer.
Yeah, Brendan Meyer, who actually I just saw last night when I rewatched The Guest. I was like, oh, it's that kid from Color Out of Space. Madeleine Arthur, who was from Big Eyes, and of course, Tommy Chong.
What? The girl was from Big Eyes?
Yeah.
I was convinced that she was one of the Olsen kids at first.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I thought she was a Mary Kate or an Ashley.
What just happened?
I'm wondering if you guys can hear my neighbors stomping around upstairs.
No.
Oh,
no.
It just looked like you had a stroke.
It's like what time is it? 8:30, and their kids are just running around up there. It's just I wish a comet would land up there and smeld them together.
Okay. Let's see. IMDb has this to say: a secluded farm is struck by a strange meteorite, which has apocalyptic consequences for the family living there and possibly the world. That's pretty good. That's pretty on point.
Succinct.
Yeah.
Well, it's an H.P. Lovecraft adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
And Stephen, you've read it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm a Lovecraft fan, so as looking at it as an adaptation, I think it's really successful. It basically followed the plot pretty much point by point from the original story, and they just added to the characters and fleshed them out. Because in the original story, Lovecraft, it's almost like a journalistic style. Like, the characters aren't really characters. They're just, like, it's reporting as, like, who the people were on the farm and what they did. And it also, I was pleasantly surprised this movie kind of got across, like, the cosmic horror aspect of Lovecraft's work, which so many adaptations don't really get. They just get, tentacle monsters, and that's pretty much it. So as an adaptation, I think it worked really well.
I agree. I think I actually went back and read the story after I watched the movie, because I had read it a long time ago, but a lot of Lovecraft kind of seeps together for me. The Dunwich Horror, and there are a couple of others. What's the one? They made that's the Dunwich Horror actually too. So they made an old one with Sandra Dee, right?
That's Dunwich Horror, which I think there's like almost a little reference to that one in this. There's a shot where it's seen from like a creature's point of view kind of thing from whatever landed in the meteorite, and it's in this weird like photo negative, like strange colored vision, and that was very much like the optical effects they did back in the 60s.
Oh, cool.
When they were doing the Dunwich Horror for that was a Roger Corman movie, so that was like on the cheap. So that was the extent of their special effects were like cheap optical effects. But I thought it was kind of a neat. I think it was probably intentional, because it seems like Richard Stanley is a big Lovecraft fan, and I've heard that he wants to turn this into a series of Lovecraft adaptations now.
Yeah,
Oh.
He's doing the Dunwich Horror next, and he said he wants to do it like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre style, with a Texas Chainsaw Massacre style family. All these like weird, just a weird family, and it's supposed to be sort of set in the same universe as this movie. So I think that the horse that was running down the highway at the end, I was thinking that might actually show up in the Dunwich Horror.
That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, having read Providence by Alan Moore, he really did kind of seep those concepts together really well. So it'll be interesting how they overlap with this sort of series in trying to make this entire universe with all of these different stories from Lovecraft and trying to connect them.
Yeah. Because Lovecraft, I mean, the whole Lovecraftian universe thing, and they call it like the Cthulhu mythos and everything, but it really was done piecemeal. I mean, Lovecraft wrote some stuff, and then he had friends who said, "Oh, I want to write some stuff," and they said, and basically he invited them to play in the sandbox. So Robert Howard, the creator of Conan, wrote some stuff that got included in it. Clark Ashton Smith. Robert Bloch wrote a fan letter to Lovecraft, and then they began corresponding, and then he wrote some stuff. So there's a whole lot of people that got involved, and it kind of grew chaotically. So it never was an intended whole universe. So it is like, I did read the Providence series by Alan Moore and Jason Burrows, and he did a really good job of trying to coalesce all the things and trying to come up with a shared universe. And I don't know if Richard Stanley is going to be as anal retentive as Alan Moore, because I don't think anybody's as anal retentive as Alan Moore. But I noticed also there was one of the shots in this movie when they're watching a news broadcast, and it's like the weather, and they did mention Arkham, which is the city it's set by, and then I also mentioned Dunwich, and then there was I think one or two other locations that were also from Lovecraft stories. So definitely setting it up.
The one guy who studies he's the hydroponics guy. He's the only science guy they have.
Which is why they asked him to study a meteor.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you know science.
I'm a hydroponics guy. And so they're like, do you want to take a look at this meteor? It's like, yeah, that's
yes, same
science.
thing.
That's right up my alley.
Radiation.
Yeah.
He ends up, he's wearing a Miskatonic University shirt as well.
Yeah. Saw that. Yep. So. My only experience with H.P. Lovecraft is actually just the Reanimator film, I think. And I think I watched a movie called Dakin about
Dagon?
What's it? Dagon. Yeah, I watched that 15 years ago or however long, and I hated it.
Really?
Yeah, I just was not into it. And that's kind of it, really.
Well, the thing is, with Lovecraft, it's kind of like you've seen elements of all of his stories in so many other films that it's really hard. He is really influential to Stephen King and John Carpenter. Like In the Mouth of Madness is so much.
Madness is totally.
Well, what I was about to say is that my main connection, I think, is In the Mouth of Madness, which to me feels like a H.P. Lovecraft story almost.
Definitely. Well, yeah, it borrows so many elements from that, and just I mean any. It's just weird to say how influential he was, because he really did kind of invent a lot of the tropes in the genre that we just kind of say. That's what's kind of weird, that his stuff is being adapted now, and then all of a sudden people are going to be saying like, oh, they're just copying off of In the Mouth of Madness. They're just copying the thing.
They're copying off the thing. Yep.
Yeah, and it's like, no, that's that was the inspiration for those movies, and it was really kind of cool that I'm sure we'll get into the effects later on, but there were some callbacks to those other movies, but they're horrific images, and I think that he really Richard Stanley does really bring them to life really well, I think.
With this, so you guys both agree that as a script, it's pretty spot on with the novel that it's based off of? Yeah. All the same characters are there and everything?
I think pretty much. I mean, again, the original was written in probably 1930s, 1940s early. The latest probably like 1941 or something like that. But They were pretty much just like country farmers and very thinly sketched characters. There was like a farmer, his wife, their children, and that was it. And then you didn't know anything else about them. So obviously they had to give them all personalities and such. And Nicolas Cage gives them the extra personality, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Is Nicolas Cage isn't a farmer in this movie, right?
Well, he's trying to be. Like, I mean, they don't really come out and say it right away, but he inherited the house from his father,
right?
And now he's trying to like grow vegetables and be an alpaca farmer, which, okay,
Sure.
Good on you, Nic Cage. But yeah, they kept all the broad strokes and all the timeline basically from the story, the original story. They pretty much kept that intact right up through the end. I wonder if there is a longer director's cut of it, because I will say that it did feel like we took some time getting to know the characters, and then it felt, once the meteor hit, it felt kind of rushed. Did anybody else feel that way? I felt like it got into the shit kind of quickly.
It did, but it was weird. I mean, this is almost a 2-hour movie, and stuff really doesn't really get into happening until, I would say, like the 50-minute mark. I mean, there's the stuff, the meteor lands, and like all that stuff happens, and there's these subtle things that are happening around the way, but it really doesn't go crazy with all of the like morphing monsters and all the lights and all that stuff till like almost an hour into it, and then you get this there is a definite shift, especially in Nicolas Cage's character.
Maybe that's why I'm thinking it, like, because it starts off so subtly, and then it just builds on that same level for such a long time, and then all of a sudden everything gets turned up to 11. So maybe that's why it felt like it was just ease, and then just all of a sudden everything happens.
Yeah, I was taking some notes as a way, like throughout the whole thing, or rewatching it, and basically I was thinking that he did, Richard Stanley did a really good job of establishing them as sort of a pretty normal family. I think that they were quirky, and they were like, each of them had their own little eccentricities, but that made them all the more real. Maybe like that dinner scene was very normal. And I think it was a definite, a purposeful sort of normal dinner thing, just to show them what the base level is with that family, so that when it does get crazy, you have something to sort of go on. And I think that just that level of normalcy, I appreciated that, and I think that a lot of films rush through that part. And he really goes for the first 20 minutes of trying to establish this normal family. But I was never bored with that. He got a cast together that were interesting enough to watch doing pretty much anything. And once things do go crazy, of course they handle that in kind of unique ways. But even before that, I never like looked at the time or anything. I mean, really, it wasn't until the 1 hour mark that I looked at the time, and I was like, "What? How are they going to wrap this up so quickly?" And then I realized it was almost a 2 hour movie. Then I was like, "Okay, yeah, there's still a lot more to do." So
yeah, I felt the same way. I didn't feel like it was rushed at all. I thought the pacing was very well done. I thought I didn't look at my watch either the whole time. I was engaged the entire time. All the characters were interesting enough together that they kept my attention, all except for one. And that was kind of my only problem with the film, is what Nic Cage is doing. I think everyone else showed up to make a movie and to work hard and do the best performance they could do. And then Nic Cage just showed up and Nic Caged his way through the whole thing. So I enjoyed it in spite of Nic Cage's presence. I think everyone else was great. There he is.
There's the man.
Sully, the man, the myth, the icon. I think he did a really good job in this movie. And
good.
I mean, I think with Mandy and this and Mom and Dad, I want to see more horror movies with Nicolas Cage in it. I think that it's a genre that he really hasn't done much in, as far as I don't know. I mean, the David Lynch stuff that he did with him was kind of horrific, but it wasn't horror, I don't think. And just the fact that he was in these last 3 movies and all 3 of them were pretty awesome. I feel that maybe he's going to be kind of give in to that kind of quirky craziness that he always brings to every one of his roles. And maybe this is a new page for him. That I feel that National Treasure and all that stuff kind of ruined him in a lot of people's eyes.
Uh-huh.
Like, he's still a really good actor. I mean, I thought it was really cool the way he was basically in denial the entire last hour of the movie, and he's trying to just have this whole normalcy thing going on, and he's drinking, and he's basically just sitting on the couch and drinking and watching television, coping with like the problems that were going on. And that's basically what I'm doing, coping with coronavirus.
Yeah.
Oh God, we're all Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, I mean, he's so much in denial, and even when he goes in and he shoots the wife and kid with the shotgun, he's like, they're not my family. That's not really them. And I thought just little lines like that I thought were really cool.
Well, yeah, I agree. That's all really good stuff that was in the script. And then Nic Cage had to use that. Those are all things I think to commend the script about, not so much Nic Cage's performance trying to get that across. I just, at no point do I ever feel emotionally attached to anything he's doing other than, all right. Yeah. But I mean, that's just me.
Well, I was talking about this with JD before we started the recording, but I can't figure out whether or not I would have liked it better if it wasn't Nic Cage. Because I do think that another actor, without bringing that like kind of Nic Caginess, that like patented, like I'm going to just act weird and crazy at certain moments, like out of nowhere. Like, I don't know if that would have served the movie better, and maybe it would have been more intense and I would have felt a little bit more for the character. But at the same time, watching it, I was very entertained by Nic Cage's acting, and in some cases how bad it was. In some cases, like, I know it was done for a specific effect. Like, one of my favorite non-horror scenes in the movie is when they're watching the news when they interviewed him about the UFO sighting. And he's standing there and he's just like looking around and kind of like scratching the back of his head. And he's like, I had a drink of bourbon. And then like on the screen, it says like UFO eyewitness / bourbon enthusiast.
I cracked up at that.
There was some little stuff like that when he was just like acting like it was almost like making dad jokes kind of things. And I said like, okay, like I like what he's doing here. And then there were some other scenes when he was just going off the rails, and I was entertained by it. But like, was it the best choice? Maybe not. But you know, it did not for me take me out of the movie at all. Like sometimes you see a movie and an actor is so out of place or so bad, you're like, oh, I can't even. Like I watch this movie and now I don't care about it. So that's
there was a point here where I stopped the movie. I rewound it. I got out my phone so I could record it on my phone, because there's like some situation where he's talking to his kid about putting the alpacas in the barn or something. And he just puts on this weird accent for no goddamn reason. And I was like, what was that? What?
Well, I love it. I love it when he comes back and he's like, they are alpacas. Alpaca.
His voice kind of gets like high and like a little like southern pissy.
Yeah, so weird.
It's almost like that. It reminds me of his accent from what's the vampire one? Vampire's Kiss. His name was Vincent Lowe or something like that, but he had a very specific accent for that film that he went kind of crazy with, and I think that when he gets angry, he kind of adopted that accent again, which was very odd. But I love the way he said boobs when he was milking the goat, and he's trying to explain it to the guy, and he's like, yeah, he goes, you have to be really, really tender and careful with the boobs. Alpaca. And then he offers the guy to drink it, and that just reminded me of the Mark Hamill moment from Last Jedi.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know. I think that there's a lot of he also has another peach reference, which if you pay attention to Nic Cage's performances, he always makes some kind of weird peach reference. when he's cutting the tomatoes, he says something like, he's like, "Oh, you're a peach," or I don't know, but it's some vaguely sexual reference, which showed up like Blue Velvet, and it showed up in Face Off, and it showed up in quite a few different movies that he's been in. So he's got some type of weird thing where he wants to mention peaches in every one of his.
Yeah, I think in Face Off, he's like, she tastes like a peach or something like that.
I can eat a peach for a week.
That's what it was. Yeah. Oh, so gross. God damn it, Nic Cage. Why are you?
But do you guys think that this movie would have gotten the press and the amount of kind of accessibility to new viewers without Nic Cage? Because I think star power is still pretty. It's tarnished a bit, but it's still pretty strong.
That's exactly what Steven said before we started recording.
Before we started recording, and Nic Cage has become kind of like a cult actor now. He's kind of achieved cult status, so he's got a following. I have a friend at work who he recommended Mandy. I still haven't seen it because I don't have time to see movies. But he's like, "Yeah, you got to see it. Nic Cage is nuts in it," and it's just we talked a little bit about like Nic Cage performances and everything else, and I do think that if Nic Cage had not been in this, you would have had a really good Lovecraft adaptation. So people who are into Lovecraft would have seen it. People, horror movie and sci-fi movie aficionados who know Richard Stanley, either by his movies or by his reputation, or people who have. I watched that documentary about the island of Dr. Moreau, which got me really interested in him. Just learning about that.
I'm obsessed with that movie and Richard Stanley. I think it's just fascinating.
So, I think those people would have seen it, but I think you're right. It's like Nic Cage does put butts in seats,
Mm-hmm.
As weird as
I agree. It bums me out that that's the case. But yeah, I think you're right. If he wasn't in this movie, I'm not entirely sure it would have gotten the buzz that it got.
What other actor out there do you know that is just like kind of crazy and nuts and mainstream? The only one I can he's kind of comparable to Crispin Glover at this point. Yeah. Where I'll watch anything with Crispin Glover in it. I just think that he's such an eccentric and chameleon-like actor. And also Christopher Walken. It's like all those guys have made careers on just having these weird roles, and I think Nic Cage was kind of miscast somewhere along the way as like this heartthrob or this big muscular action hero. Movies like Vampire's Kiss, Raising Arizona, all those movies were, and even Wild at Heart, they were all that was his strong point. That was where he was like just kind of given into the madness that he had inside of him, and just really pushing that out on the screen, and everybody really loved him back then. Even in Leaving Las Vegas, I think that it portrayed him in a very sympathetic way. And he was definitely not like a romantic kind of lead or any type of heroic sort of character, but he was fascinating to watch. Somewhere along the way, he lost that. But I feel he's crawling back movie by movie into that sort of category where I just want to watch him, what he's going to do in the next movie that he's in, basically.
I don't mind that he's in this. I just wish he brought it down a couple notches. And I'm able to deal with it a little bit more because part of the plot of this movie is a meteor comes along and it starts fucking with their brains. And their perceptions and everything. So the fact that he starts to act really wonky and weird and gets crazier and crazier and cagier as the movie goes, there's at least a reason for it.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's, I remember Mom and Dad, which is awesome. I love, if you guys haven't seen Mom and Dad, I would highly recommend it. But even in that, he's pretty even keel for most of the movie. But then there's a scene in the basement where he goes full Cage for like a couple of minutes, and then I'm like, oh, there he is. All right, can you get back? Now we go back to normal. Great. It's he does. There's a little bit of charm here that he brings, but more often than not, I'm just rolling my eyes at it. But there's a couple of good bits in here. that he's involved in.
Well,
I think everyone else. What do you?
It just really feels like the character was kind of underwritten specifically for him, so he would apply that cageness to him. Because other than that, all he did was really go around and say he was an overprotective dad for his daughter. He was trying to be a loving husband. All of that is really boring stuff. But he stood out because he was acting in all those kind of crazy ways. Like it would have been every time he saw him, the only thing that he was doing was being the protective father, even though he wasn't very successful at that. That was all the lines that he had. Like he would tell Lavinia to go indoors, like whenever the guy was around, and he was really. It seems like one of the weird themes in this movie. I mean, you could boil it down to basics, and it seems like Nicolas Cage didn't want his daughter dating a black
guy. Which would also be very Lovecraftian, since H.P. Lovecraft is a huge racist.
But it was just weird. If you look at that, it was he was constantly trying to get his daughter to go inside, and go check on your mom, get away from that guy, which was really, really weird, because he was kind of that way in Mom and Dad too, which was very odd as well, because his daughter was dating a black guy in that movie as well, which was just, I don't know, it's an ongoing theme. All of these were produced by the same company as well.
Oh, really?
Mandy, Mom and Dad, and this is the third movie that he has worked with this production company, and in there. So, that's really kind of cool that they're doing that. And I think this also paired with Elijah Wood's company, which is basically he has his fingers in all the pies right now, as far as is concerned. But
I'm surprised that Mom and Dad I haven't heard people talking about that movie. It was such a surprise hit for me. I loved it.
I still have to watch it, because that was one that I saw on. I was like scrolling through looking for movies, and I was like, "Oh, this sounds like it could be interesting." And again, I don't have the time these days, so I'll have to make some time to watch it.
It's fun.
It's great.
Grant Morrison has a little cameo in there.
That's right.
Because I think it was from an idea that Grant Morrison had. I think, or
okay.
Grant Morrison was sort of, I think, somehow the inspiration for the story. It's basically about how parents have this natural urge to want to kill their children, and then something happens to amplify that. So everyone else's kids are fine. It's just that if you're a parent, you want to kill your kids. So
it's like 28 days later, but it only affects people with children.
Yeah,
towards their children.
And there are some fun twists along the way too.
Being stuck at home with my 5-year-old during school closing from the corona, I can attest that every word of that is true.
Yep, very much so. But yeah, it's I don't know. I think that this is impressive. Nic Cage, I think that he's got a lot of baggage with him. So you're gonna bring to this whatever you already feel about Nic Cage. I think
that's true. Yeah. What did you guys think? Let's move on to scares. Did you, as a horror movie, what did you guys feel? What did you feel about it?
I enjoyed it. I thought it had a lot of good creepiness. I think the climax of the movie I loved. I thought that was handled really well. It had some disturbing imagery, and just I felt that overall, I think they hit more of the scares they were looking to get than they missed. There were a couple misses, I thought, in terms of how the effects held up. These days, I'm always bummed when I see CGI, and I know that nowadays a lot of times CGI works out cheaper in some way to do for movies, because they don't have to spend the time planning and making props or making models or whatever. So I liked some of the use of the CGI in the end when it's more cosmic stuff. But there was the skinned cat in the road, which I thought looked just awful. That one I think was supposed to be a lot scarier than it was, and it just was like, oh wow, that's pretty bad. And then there was like the mantis, like the pink praying mantis, which was not meant to be scary, just more unnerving. But again, It's one of those things where I'm just like, I'm just thinking, look at that computer effect. I'm not thinking of it as a real thing.
Yeah.
Even if it had been
the close up on the mantis's face, where he's got the multiple kind of weird eyes, and then he's got the tentacles coming out of his mouth. I thought
that was better, but a lot of the
I like the design of it. Yeah.
But like I liked, there's a definite. I feel like a definite homage to The Thing when they go into the barn and there's all the alpacas have merged into like that one like tentacly kind of amorphous alpaca blob. I liked that a lot because that felt a lot more visceral, and I thought those effects and the effect also obviously when the mother and the son had the same thing happen to them. I thought those were really great, creepy, gross out effects. And so I think as a horror movie, it worked really well, hitting most of it.
I think they're both the script and the effects for me worked. The cat was a little rough, and I think that alpaca scene when they showed it all, they showed the broad shot. It didn't work as well as that broad shot of all the dogs kind of melded together because that was practical, and the long shot of the alpacas, it seemed like that was CGI. I'm pretty sure it was, but there were close-ups of it, and I'm wondering if because of budget, the actual effect didn't look as good when you pulled the camera back a little bit.
Maybe
one of the scenes that really freaked me out, and I think this was all practical, was when Lavinia goes upstairs for the last time to see her mom and brother, who have been kind of melted together by this blast from the is it from the well or from the farmhouse? I'm not sure.
That one was from the farmhouse, I believe.
And that's after he kills all the alpacas. Is that what happens? Or
I don't think he's killed them at that point yet. I think that happened before. I forget why they go in there, but
they go in. They're looking for the dog, I think.
Oh, right.
Anyway, I think that scene was done really well. There's that scene where the mom and the kid are upstairs and they get up out of bed and they crawl towards Lavinia, and it's just this blob of bodies together and these arms and legs that are kind of crawling towards them, and it's a shot from above, and that just freaked me the hell out. I thought that, and then when they bust in and they shoot her in the head, and the blood just splatters all over Lavinia's face, I'm just like, God, this family is just being really put through the ringer.
I give them credit also for really going for it and not, there's no happy ending here. This is just it's totally bleak and nihilistic, which is like a lot of H.P. Lovecraft's work and his view of humanity. So that's right there. I also did like there were a lot of subtle things, not so much scares, but just subtle things to make it unnerving, where they did like color effects. Like they had a scene where Nic Cage was putting ice cubes in his glass, and you can see they did a little color effect where there's like a prismatic thing on there. And then there was the earlier scene,
like a little bit of oil or something almost.
Yeah, and there was an earlier scene where the Ward, the guy, was checking out the site for the reservoir.
Scientist.
He's out in the woods and he's shining his flashlight in the dark, and as the flashlight pans, there's just little hints of that same kind of prismatic effect of color, and I thought that was really nicely done, just showing that there's a little bit here and there. It's like infecting the woods.
Yeah, it's all over the place. It's like the entire place is infected, and it keeps on expanding. I love that. The other thing I loved about the script was there's this one line that it's actually in the written kind of the written story from Lovecraft, but he says, oh gosh, I wrote it down. Oh, he said Billy lives in the well now, and just that line was just so creepy. It's so vague and so. It's such an odd line, but he's saying like, all the family's here. They're all over here. Look at him. And he's obviously just hallucinating right now. But he's like, except Billy. Billy's in the well now. And that just seemed, it's a throwaway line, but I think the way Cage delivered it, and at the time of all of this other crazy stuff happening, it just works. And it really is chilling. I like the opening narration too, because I think it sets the stage really well. They were talking about all of these, the forest and how old it was, and how no sun has ever shone on the ground because the forest has been so thick, and all of this stuff that really establishes a really great mood, and all of that I think is just straight from Lovecraft's words, and it shows how much Stanley I think respects and
even the end of the movie when they flooded the valley for the reservoir, and that's little things that like it's kind of neat that I respect that they didn't come out and say really bluntly like, oh, the town wanted to buy this land for the reservoir and I didn't let them because blah blah blah. But there's like the scene where the mayor's there and she says like, you should have sold me this place, and you piece it together like, oh, okay, that's why they wanted to use that land for the. And then the guy's up on the dam and he's looking at the reservoir and saying he's never going to drink the water. That's like pretty much also from I believe that's also almost verbatim from the original story, talking about they flooded it all. It's like I would not drink that water, because who knows what's still alive down there.
Yeah, needless to say, I'm drinking. I've always drank bottled water. I don't trust the Chicago water system here, but I was not drinking right from the tap after this. Yeah,
Nice.
It really does. And I think that another movie that this was based on, The Curse. I don't know. Have you guys seen that?
Tell me which one.
It's called The Curse, and it's also based on The Color Out of Space.
I don't think I've seen that one.
This one stars Will Wheaton. It was like right after his Stand By Me days, pre-Star Trek New Generation. But basically, he was a boy on a farm, and a meteor comes down, and it changes his mom, and it turns her into this like kind of like blob-like creature. But the dad is religious, and they don't believe in doctors. They don't believe in anything like that. So he has to go up and take care of her, and it's very much like The Fly. It's very it's practical effects, and it's like any body horror like this. You can name like any type. There are so many movies that have been out lately about that. I think the most famous has been The Fly, but just that whole fact that you're disintegrating, your body is becoming foreign to you. What is that? Yes,
The Curse.
The Curse.
Yep, that's it. Yeah, it's actually a pretty well-made movie. I don't know who was the director, but I do remember it to be very unnerving, and it just
1987, directed by David Keith, adapted from The Color Out of Space.
David Keith, that's Keith David.
Keith David is the guy from They Live. Is that what you're thinking of?
I do the same thing. I do the same thing every time.
Yeah. Oh, okay. David Keith. I don't know who that is, but
yeah, you do.
Who's that? Oh, shit!
Isn't he
he's
from?
He's a character actor.
Isn't he from? He's from.
He's in that movie. I think he plays the dad.
Oh, isn't he from Firestarter?
Yes, he is.
He's the dad in Firestarter.
Mm-hmm. Maybe he plays the dad in that, or he plays something in that movie. Anyway, but he actually, or that movie actually, I don't know, it just creeped me out when I saw it, and then I saw The Fly, but lately there's been so many other movies that kind of do this, where it seems like it's a metaphor for disease, for AIDS, for cancer, for whatever it is. And I imagine with coronavirus happening now that we're going to get a lot more body horror kind of films. I hope they're not obvious. Like, did you guys see my review for Corona Zombies?
I saw that there's a movie called Corona Zombies.
Right. I saw that it existed, and that was enough.
Oh, dude. It's funny because maybe I'm just punchy just being in the house all this time, but it was really kind of a relief to kind of laugh at some of this stuff. Some of the jokes were obvious, but it did kind of just make light of a lot of the stuff that's going on, and I think it's necessary just as humans to kind of try to find something to laugh sometimes at these things.
Of course, yeah.
And, for some reason, it worked for me, so I do actually recommend it. It's like it's like MSTK3K or MST3K, where it's basically old movies. It's a couple old zombie movies, and then they just dub over the top of them with just guys' voices.
Oh, that's funny. All right.
That sounds more interesting than what I thought it was. I thought it was one of
absolutely.
those, like,
but
they
it
had
also,
a generic zombie movie and then just slapped the word Corona on it.
No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, they do have a couple of scenes that try to make it into a storyline. So it's like a girl at home trying to survive the coronavirus, and she's talking about the coronavirus. But for the most part, it's this movie, Hell of the Living Dead, where it's like an old Italian zombie movie that's in public domain, so they could use it. And they basically follow the same story, but they use all of these different like sayings, like, you should be 6 feet away from me, and they're pushing the zombies away.
Oh, funny.
So that was a lot of it. For me, it hit at the right time. Just so I recommend it. But anyway, it's that type of thing. I'm wondering if we're going to get those an inundation of those types of movies here in the next year or so, which I'm sure we will.
To go back to it, I thought this was awesome. As far as horror movies are concerned, I thought the horror was great. I thought most of the effects were great. That they were trying things with these sort of, I guess, what are they called? Elder gods? These tentacle monsters. I'd never seen tentacles done in this way. All of the color is just fantastic. I find it super beautiful and gorgeous to look at. There was times where I would...
There were a couple shots where I'm like, this looks like a Thomas Kincaid painting. You know, the guy used to have on all the malls, like, with everything's all pink and like flowery. And that's the
I
funny
love
thing.
it.
It's like it's aesthetically, like, you look at it and it's beautiful, but it's wrong, and that's like the whole thing. It's
I did a little research on this, and it said that the color was actually magenta is actually a color that cannot be replicated in nature. So that's why they use this one. But yeah, it's supposed to be some kind of just color that we've never seen before.
Yeah, which is hard to do. It's easy to do in writing, to say it's a color, but it didn't look like any color. And then, they had to go with like this pink. Like when Nicolas Cage is first describing it, it's like, it's pink. No, it was like no other color. And I'm like, no, it's pink. It's
just pink dog.
But I mean, it's how do you do that? It's impossible to do.
Yeah.
But so I give them points for making it as bizarre as they could and making it really work. And
that's why I wasn't so bummed about the CGI in some of the instances here, because you couldn't do this as far as traditionally.
Right.
Yeah, so I think you need to CG it.
To the very end, where like the kind of spout comes out of the well and just like erupts through the space, and Lavinia is kind of consumed by it. I thought that was a good use of CGI. I thought all those effects looked great, and then like the grass just starts moving and like crawling over the guy's hands as he's lying there. And
so cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff there. Like I said, there were a couple moments that I didn't think worked as well, but at the end, when it really had to, it all came together in a really great way.
Yeah.
Now, having never read the book, I was completely sidelined by the mom and the boy merging bodies. So when I got to that point, it felt like it kicked it up a couple of notches for me, and I went, "Oh shit, this is fucked up." I didn't realize it was going to be this fucked up.
And I didn't either, because that's not in the book.
Oh, isn't it? Okay.
No, they just have in the book. It's a longer period of time, and the mother gets put up in the attic because she's acting weird, and then like there's hints like she's no longer quite human. Then like the same thing happens with I forget if it's a son or a daughter in the book, but no, they definitely pushed it up by having them fused together here.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, it sucks that this has to happen, but when you see a little kid in a movie, it's either going to be, oh, this kid's going to be fine, or it's going to be, they're going to try to make it much more impactful by having the kid, something horrible happen to the kid. But it works. I think it works in this.
It gets me, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think also because you are kind of forced to look at this through Lavinia's eyes, and you see that she has to go up there and sort of see her and comfort her, even though she doesn't look like this person that she's grew up with, or it's just it hits you on this level of kind of just personal horror that it's uncomfortable, and it just makes you feel just it just makes you feel icky thinking about it. But I love that type of stuff in horror movies. It just seems like that's the type of horror that it really does horrify you. It makes you feel you have a visceral kind of reaction to it.
Yep. All right. And to continue our color out of space discussion, we're going to be winding it down soon, but I want to talk about the score first, which I love. And I had mentioned that Waxwork is actually putting out the vinyl soundtrack, the original score. I think later this month, and I may actually pick it up because not only do I want to listen to the vinyl, usually I listen to movie soundtracks like John Carpenter type stuff in the morning when I'm having my coffee. But I also have a frame for, I can put up whatever current favorite album is playing or whatever up on my wall. And I definitely want this. This is the color out of space cover here, if you can see it on the stream. And I want that on my wall as well. What do you guys think of the score?
I really enjoyed it. I can't really remember anything that stood out, but I felt at the time watching it that it really worked well with it.
Yeah.
The things I do remember especially are at the end of the movie. Again, it really built to a great climax, and I think the soundtrack made a big impact with that too. And it really worked well with it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I just watched a film that had such an invasive score, and it just did not match the tone of the movie. So I've started to pay a little bit more attention to this than I normally do, and it really did feel like this one was it matched up almost perfectly. I think that it wasn't overpowering. It didn't kind of convey some type of mood that wasn't being conveyed with the imagery or whatever was going on in the movie. It just felt like it was very compatible, and whoever it was is a very talented score maker. Score person. I don't know what he's called.
Composer.
Yeah.
You've just coined a new term, Stephen. Congratulations. I believe we're going to call them composers from now on.
Nice. I am a trendsetter.
Well done. Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was great. I love it. I can't wait to listen to more of it.
I did kind of want to just chat like a tiny bit about Richard Stanley and how
great,
eccentric and awesome he is as far as a filmmaker. He made Hardware ages ago, and that movie is, I mean, to this day, Hardware is amazing and kind of revolutionary and just really it was like kind of like a cyberpunk sort of story, but just very gritty. It came out around the time of, I believe, Terminator 2, and or maybe even before that, maybe around when Terminator came out. But it actually keeps its distance from that just because of the kind of like weird the weird environment it sets the stage in, and I just think it's an amazing film all in itself.
I don't think I've ever seen Hardware.
Oh, it's amazing.
Me neither.
We should dig that up and watch it one day, because it really does show that I mean, when it came out, everybody was kind of lauding him as the new big thing in horror. And then he came out with Dust Devil after that, and that was a little less successful, but still I liked the movie a lot. And his third movie was supposed to be Island of Dr. Moreau, which is well documented about and how he kind of lost control of the set there and how it was sort of sabotaged. But also, he was a low budget director. It was used to kind of not have studio intervention, and seeing him kind of fall apart in that movie, it's heartbreaking, but it's fascinating, and it really did. That film broke him almost, and he just sort of went into hiding for a couple of years, kind of retreated. He got into spiritualism, and I don't know if it's the occult, but it's spiritualism and it's not like horoscopes or astrology or anything like that, but it's some sort of mysticism.
Sure.
Not completely unlike Alan Moore, but not as, I don't think, egocentric as Alan Moore.
Sure.
I did see a documentary he made about he moved to France basically, and he lives there, and he talks about spiritual places in France in this documentary that he wrote and directed. But really, he hadn't done anything creative since he tried Island of Dr. Moreau. And that the documentary that depicts that is called Lost Souls, and it is one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. It's so good. If you love horror and you love like the making of horror, and it's almost as good as the what's that movie when they showed it was basically Francis Ford Coppola. It's Heart of Darkness. It's basically a documentary about how crazy things got on Francis Ford Coppola's Heart of Dark or Apocalypse Now. That it's I think it's comparable to that, just to show how crazy that movie got and how out of control it was, and all the plans that they had for it, and how it actually turned out, which wasn't very good, but still it's a fun movie to go back and see. But at the same time, I've just always been an admirer of this guy. I think that he's had it rough lately, and to see him make a comeback like this is really inspiring. I think he's done a fantastic job with this movie as far as directing is concerned.
Oh yeah, I think he directed the crap out of this movie. It's wonderful. I remember all I know about the Island of Dr. Moreau is that I saw it in the theater and I absolutely hated it. And I've heard some titterings, here and there about, I guess, the problems that it had behind the scenes, but I didn't know all of that. Didn't they make a documentary about this?
They did. Yeah, it's called Lost Souls. Steven, you saw it, right?
It's called what?
Yeah, Lost Souls.
Lost Souls.
They was streaming originally on Netflix. It might still be you might be able to find it streaming somewhere. It is a really good documentary. You find out that one of the people that really tanked the movie was Val Kilmer.
Yeah.
Because he was a huge egocentric asshole. It went through all sorts of trouble with like hurricanes on the island they were filming, and like just all these things that were out of his control. And then of course, Marlon Brando, just batshit crazy Marlon Brando too. But yeah, like Mark said, it sounds like the whole process just went totally batshit. It's amazing that a movie actually got made watching this documentary. Like they actually managed to salvage anything.
Yeah.
But definitely worth watching.
It wasn't John McTiernan. I forget who John McNaughton? No.
Was it oh gosh, what is his name? The guy who did it's gonna drive me nuts. I don't know. I have to look it up. But somebody who was like a pretty like studio friendly like action movie director, right?
Okay.
Somebody like that brought in to finish up.
Yeah, but the problem is that all the sets were built, and by that time all of the actors and all the crew had been through just literal hell, with the set being destroyed by hurricanes and all of the insolent actors. And then there was actually a part where they were filming, and Richard Stanley got a mask of one of the Dr. Moreau mutate guys, and was able to sneak onto the set, and so he plays one of the characters in the final movie wearing one of the masks of the man monsters. So
that's funny. It
just shows like the guy. I mean, he probably went a little nuts, and I interviewed him a couple of years ago, and I asked him about it, and he admitted. He said, "Yeah, that one." That made me nuts. It really pushed me over the edge that he lost control of that movie, because he loves. You can just tell that he's a person who respects these kind of H.G. Wells, Lovecraft. He doesn't see them as something that he can trot over. It just feels like he respects it so much that he tries to bring the best out of it, and doesn't try to make it an egocentric thing. Just makes it kind of translates it and sees it for what it is. And saying like, oh, this is my version of it. It just feels like he did that with Color Out of Space. I think he really got out of the way and didn't really try to make it into his movie. I think he just really it shows a maturity and a generosity as far as a director to kind of do that to a material it is very well known. I don't think a lot of normal people know it, but I think among the horror community,
among the abnormal of us,
yeah. The horror files in the group, I think everybody's heard of that title before, even if they don't know where it's from,
Right.
So,
to compare it to other horror films in the subgenre, what thought we could wrap it up by talking about other movies of its ilk and how it stacks up against those. Now, I didn't even know this, but you guys told me beforehand that Creepshow was part of that was based on this, right?
Yeah, the lonesome death of Jordy Verrill part where Stephen King gets turned into a giant vegetable monster. That was this is one of Stephen King's favorite Lovecraft stories, and that was sort of his take on it. Very broad strokes. Meteor comes down, meteor shit, and then Plant Man, meteor shit.
Yeah.
But also there was a movie made in the 60s. It was a Hammer movie, right, Mark? It was
I think so. I'm pretty
Die
sure.
Monster Die, Boris Karloff.
Wow.
They transposed it from the Arkham of Massachusetts to Arkham, London, or Arkham, England, rather. And it's set in this old, very gothic manor house. So, they took a lot of liberties with the story, but it does have, the weird moving trees and mutated creatures. And at the end, there's the big, circle of ash where the thing was.
Yeah. And it also, I remember seeing it a while back, and it has this kind of very cheaply made. It was done in the 60s or late 60s, and it's very cheaply made kind of iridescent glow that the plants had and all the people had that kind of identified that this was some type of otherworldly alien kind of colors, and they tried to do that. They didn't do it as magenta, but it was more like a fluorescent green sort of look. But I do think that it really does work. It's just as an old monster movie, I think.
Yeah, that turns it into a monster movie. But they adapted some of the stuff, and the moodiness did translate. And then there's the curse that you were talking about.
And I think the Blob. I think the Blob works as well. There's this whole thing where a meteor comes down. I mean, obviously, the Blob influenced the Jordy Verrill story from Creepshow because it's almost shot for shot where the Blob comes down, he sticks a stick on it, and it opens up, and all this stuff. But this kind of giant pink ooze that comes out and attacks a town, and it keeps on growing and growing and growing, just like the color does in this story. I think it's definitely derivative of it. If not, maybe it wasn't a direct kind of translation of it, but I do think that it all came from the same idea.
And it's interesting because, I mean, the Blob you think of as a very sci-fi horror movie, like 1950s space age. And in that way, in some ways, Lovecraft was very much ahead of his time because when you think about it, it's a science fiction story. It's a horror story, but it's also something came out of space. They don't know what it is, but it infected something with a mysterious radiation. It's a very forward-thinking piece, and again, because of his writing style and everything, it gets lumped back in the horror category. But it definitely has more of a sci-fi bent to it than a lot of his other things do.
Yeah, and the body horror of it, I think the body horror does show up in his original writings, and just I don't know. I mean, a lot of you look back at his contemporaries like Poe, and he didn't do much transformation other than that one. What's the one where the guy freezes in time, or is the Charles Dexter Ward one, or is that Lovecraft?
That's Lovecraft.
Is it? Oh, okay. I'm thinking of the movie translations of it, but yeah, that's body horror as well, where he freezes in time, but he starts decomposing very quickly, and it's I think that Lovecraft really is the godfather of a lot of these concepts, whether people will admit it or not. And I know that there's a sort of a stigma because of the language he used, and also just I think he was writing for the time that he was in, and that's why a lot of people find it problematic. But at the same time, that wasn't like the point of his stories. You know,
Right.
he was talking about this other dimension and these elder gods and these intergalactic kind of monsters.
Yeah, I mean, his basic thing was just that humanity is nothing compared to, the unknown, which is, I mean, that's a pretty apt description of like the cosmic horror and even you want to talk about movies again. We're kind of cycling back to the beginning, talking about Lovecraft's influence, but even like the original Alien movie, Dan O'Bannon said he was writing Lovecraft in space, and like fully intended it to be like Lovecraftian in that there's this totally unknowable monster that they've never encountered, and it's like just totally beyond them. So yeah, I mean, it did have a lot of influences. In terms of The Color Out of Space, I know there was I want to say a German version made early 2000s, a black and white. Have you guys seen that?
Nope.
I have. It's okay. I think a lot of times, a lot of those low budget movies, they don't have the budget to kind of bring his ideas to life. But then they also try to be a little too on the nose with what is being written. So I believe, if I remember it correctly, it feels more like somebody's just reading out loud the story, and they're using a lot of images just to catch up with it. It didn't when I actually looked it up again. I reviewed it a long time ago, but I've seen so much that I just can't. All of them, that one just never stuck out to me as something that was really a great adaptation, like Die Monster Die or The Curse, that actually struck me and made me remember it a little bit more. And this one definitely, I think this is the best rendition of that story out of all of them. But yeah, I don't know. You haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it. I remember looking at it when it came out and never watching it, but just wondered if that stacked up. But good to know. Now I don't have to watch it.
Not to bother.
Yeah.
How does this one stack up against all of those? Do you think that this is a worthy adaptation?
I think this is, like I said, I think this is the best, definitely the best one of this story, and one of the best Lovecraft adaptations. Period. I'd count like maybe this up along the lines with like Dagon, which I know you didn't like, but I really enjoyed that one. In the Mouth of Madness, which is the best Lovecraft movie that's not strictly Lovecraft, and I think probably
Reanimator.
Yeah, Reanimator for it's not strictly Lovecraft, but it's a lot of good fun.
Yeah.
There's actually a really low budget movie called Cthulhu that was made probably around like 95, 96 or something like that, which I feel captures a lot of like Lovecraft's essence without having a lot of big effects or anything else. But this one I thought is one of the best ones to come out, definitely in recent years.
Cool.
Nice. Any final thoughts of Color Out of Space before we hit the dusted trail?
Personally, I think so far I haven't found a horror movie that beats it as far as everything from direction to effects to performance to just the overall feel of the film. I think that there have been really good movies that have been out there, but for one reason or another, they just don't have all of that in one movie as this one does. I think it just packs it packs a big punch, and it really does hit a home run on very many levels. Like I said, like the effects are really cool. I like the performances. I know you didn't, JD, all of them, but I just think the overall story and just how well it was made and how respectful it was made, it's the best I've seen so far this year.
I will say, performance-wise, I was shocked at how good Tommy Chong was, because I saw his name in the trailer. I'm like, Tommy Chong. I'm like, what, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, we didn't talk about Tommy Chong.
We didn't talk about Tommy Chong as the mysterious hippie squatter guy, but he did great, and he didn't overdo it. It wasn't like he was doing his Cheech and Chong routine, but it worked really well, and it was just enough.
Yeah.
And I would love to see the Nicolas Cage outtakes that were left on the cutting room floor, because if this is what wound up in the film, I want to see what it was like. Maybe that was a little too cagey.
Yeah.
Do a super cut of all those.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think this was great. I don't know if it's the best of the year. I'd have to give that some thought, but it's certainly on my list. I think this was a big surprise for me. I really didn't have much expectation going in, other than I was like, poster's pretty cool. Nic Cage, great. Let's see how this goes. But I'm really glad I took the time to sit and watch it. I was enthralled the entire time, except for when I had to freeze, take a video of Nic Cage doing his thing. But yeah, I think this is wonderful. I was really, really pleased by it. Yeah.
It's a good one.
Next time, do you think we should, I think we have access to We Summon the Darkness, so maybe we can do that for the next Cannibal HorrorCast. What do you guys think?
Yeah. I liked it.
Try to find the time to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun. I mean, I don't want to oversell it, but it is. It's fun. And one of the girls in it is just hot as a tamale on fire.
God damn it.
I think you found your new catchphrase.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, ML Miller, where can the people find you?
I write at ML Miller Writes. I have two trade paperbacks that were supposed to be coming out, but then the coronavirus hit. So, I was supposed to actually have a trade of Grave Trancers coming out on the 25th of this month, but that's not going to happen. Also, because Diamond shut down during April, Pirouette was supposed to be available this month to order, but because Diamond shut down again, I don't think there are going to be many orders for that. So we're going to resolicit those. Those are going to be coming out a little bit later on in the year. It sucks that that people have to wait that long, even more, especially for Pirouette, which has been on the shelf for a long time. But
well, I was just on the Black Mask webpage. Aren't Pirouette and Grave Trancers, those aren't available through their website?
They will be soon, but I don't think those two are going to be available yet. They will. They want to see what's going to happen with Diamond, obviously.
Gotcha.
I mean, everything. I mean, I'm sure JD, with you having the store, everything is insane right now, and so hopefully this whole Corona thing will pass by, and we will have we'll be able to come through the other side, and everything will be coming back to some semblance of normalcy, and then those books will be out soon. But that'll be about it. You can find on Twitter at Mark_L_Miller, and that's pretty much it. And at mlmillerwrites.com, that's where I have my reviews every week or every day.
Your horror reviews, right?
Yes, and I'm counting down the best of 2013, 2014 right now. And that was a good year. Not as good as 2012, 2013. I think that was probably one of the best years in horror that we've had in a long time. If you want to go back and check that out, there's just some really, really good horror movies. I think it topped it. The number one that I pointed out for that year was Maniac, with Elijah Wood.
Oh, yeah.
That was a great movie.
Oh, it's so good.
So uncomfortable.
It is, but it's just so well done. It's another movie that, it transfers you into a very uncomfortable place, like the back of a Winnebago.
The back of a Volkswagen?
Volkswagen.
Yeah.
Volkswagen, that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's the word, or that's the saying. But yeah, it's a great film. We should cover that one time, because I think that it's definitely worth going back to, I think.
Yeah, I'd revisit that. Yeah. We could do a, Maniac versus Maniac. The original versus the remake. Steven, where can the people find you?
I have my portfolio at sandroidillustration.com. I have now a Big Cartel shop open with some prints. If you go to sandroidillustration.bigcartel.com, I've got some prints that were left over from older gallery shows, and also a new series of Twilight Zone inspired prints that I've been fiddling with, just doing kind of more minimalist style, like Saul Bass inspired kind of stuff. I've been having a lot of fun with that. And then if you go to Gallery 1988, they're based in LA, but they have a lot of my original art and some other prints there. Great gallery for pop culture artwork, so definitely go check that out.
Awesome. Yeah, if you guys want to help out the show, you can go to patreon.com/JohnnyDestructo. You can tweet at me at JD's Hero Complex, and you can come to my, well, you can't come to my shop, but I do mail outs.
Stay inside.
At 4327 Main Street, Philadelphia, PA, Johnny Destructo's Hero Complex. Yeah, get at me and I will order in some comic books and then mail them directly to your home. Yes. So that is it. Thanks so much for joining us. We will see you next time when we discuss We Summon the Darkness. And that's it. We're done. We did it.
Yay.
First live stream for the HorrorCast.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks so much. And we will talk at you later. Boop.